My brother-in-law keeps making fun of me and says I look like a girl, so I got dressed up as a prank. Now my sister is saying I ruined her marriage. To put it bluntly, I, 20M, look like a girl, definitely a flat-chested one, but still. I guess I'm just unlucky in the genetics department. Most people think I'm just a tomboy, but it gets a bit annoying when people mistake me for a girl. I'm pretty comfortable with myself now, but I used to get bullied a lot for it and I can be a bit sensitive about it. My older sister, 26F, doesn't stop her husband, 30M, from making fun of me and is always doing it. I've told him to stop, but he never does and says it's all just jokes. I've gotten sick of it and wanted to get back at him instead of being my usual timid self, so I went out of my way to get some friends and my younger sister, 20F, to give me a makeover a little before they were to come over. Basically, make me look as girly as possible. They did a pretty good job, and it turns out that if I'm all made up, I look a lot like a younger version of my older sister. When they came over, I made sure to act as girly as possible. He was visibly very uncomfortable, so I knew I was definitely winning this one. They left very early, and I got a text from my sister calling me a prick for making her husband uncomfortable. She told a few family members, and most are on my side, but a few think what I did was childish and wrong. Edit. I got a text from my sister that I'm a giant piece of crap and ruining her marriage. I don't think I will be seeing them anytime soon, but just in case, I'm going to try and have a proper conversation with my parents about everything and see if we can keep them out of the house for a while. Since I only pay rent to live with them, I don't really get a say, but I hope my parents can support me. Update 1. It's been a wild couple of days. I had a sit down with my parents and had a big talk about my feelings. They agreed that my sister's husband wouldn't be welcome in the house anymore. The only reason they didn't do or say anything about it is because they thought it didn't bother me and knew I'm a tough cookie. They apologized for that and said they would speak out more in the future if anything like this happens again. My older sister had been texting me a lot, calling me all sorts of names, saying I'm ruining her marriage. She also visited yesterday, and as soon as she came into the house, she started screaming at me, and things got heated. So my parents also banned her from coming over until she can apologize for her behavior and for letting her husband continue to make me uncomfortable. On a more positive note, I've been exploring myself a lot these past couple of days with my twin sister. She told me not to call her my younger sister, but I'm 4 or 5 hours older than her, so I'll always call her my younger sister, lol. Update 2. My brother-in-law came to the house yesterday, and clearly he had been drinking. He was mumbling things about how I ruined his marriage, calling me names and other BS. He went to the side of the house and entered through the back door that we never lock, and terrifyingly, he came after me and tried to push my head towards his manhood, and when that didn't work, he tried pulling my pants down and pushing me to the ground. Thankfully, my sister was there to pull him off and threaten him with a kitchen knife. He left right away, and we called the police and my parents who were out at the time. My parents came straight away, but police didn't show up till 2 hours later to basically just say they can't do anything and that if we want we can go to the courthouse for a restraining order. My parents tried calling and texting my sister to tell her what happened and to find out why he did what he did, but all she texted back was to F off. I'm very shaken up right now, but I'm not going to let it get to me. Update 3. My brother-in-law came to my house again to supposedly apologize, but luckily, I wasn't there, and my dad chased him off while calling the police. This time, they actually came at an appropriate time, but there was nothing they could do except advise my parents and me to get a restraining order, so that's what I did. Right now, I only have a restraining order that lasts about 20 days, but if he doesn't show up to court in those days, I'll get a more permanent one. Other than that, everything has been quiet, and we haven't heard from my older sister or her husband since. We do know she's safe since she's been trash-talking the family to friends and other extended family. I've been mainly staying in, feeling depressed but doing okay-ish, seeing a therapist, been diagnosed with depression, and I've been put on medication. I honestly thought I was fine for those days after my brother-in-law tried that, but it got to me more than I thought. My other sisters have really been helping me not feel alone, even if it's just us watching Netflix in silence on opposite ends of the couch. It makes me feel safer. Update 4. Hey everyone, it's been a while. My dad had a heart attack and passed away about 7 months ago. I just had to watch my dad suffer while I couldn't do anything but cry with my sisters while our mother called an ambulance. I miss him so badly. I'm still grieving but doing a bit better after seeing a therapist and psychologist. As for my older sister, the last we heard from her was after dad passed away, and all she was interested in was the inheritance. She cursed our mother out when realizing that he left nothing to her, and everything went to our mother. Since then, we haven't heard from her or seen her. What we do know is that she and her husband moved across the country to live with his extended family, so good riddance. On a side note, I got some testing and screening done, and I think I've got some kind of androgen deficiency. Maybe that's why I always looked kind of feminine, lol.
Stay tuned. The next story is even crazier.
I wore a gold dress to my best friend's wedding, and it exposed his wife's cold black heart because she exploded at me for ruining her special day. Posted by you/vivid_promise_8476. For some context, my 30F best friend Dan, 30M, got married to Lauren, 27F, yesterday. Dan and I have been best friends since high school, and despite always being platonic with no romantic interests on either side, his now wife Lauren has always disliked me. In their 3 years of dating, I have not been allowed to see Dan alone because she feels that it's suspicious that I want to hang out with him. Honestly, I just miss my friend. Despite me being happily married, she's always kept me at arm's length. I always figured this was because she's from a very conservative family. Dan has spoken to her multiple times, and after she'll back off for a bit before reverting to complaining about him being friends with a girl again. It's not ideal, but she makes Dan happy, so I made my peace with it. That brings us to the wedding. Originally, I was going to be in the groom's party, but Lauren ended up crying, saying a wedding is not a place to swap gender roles. Dan was fighting her on this, but I told him I would just attend as a guest and not to choose this hill to lay on. The dress code was warm tone garden party, and we were encouraged to wear earthy warm colors. I picked out a bronze/orange dress that I thought fit this perfectly, and the style even matched some examples they gave. In short, I thought I had nailed it. The wedding went great. However, at the reception, Lauren dragged me aside and said, "I cannot believe you would wear gold to my wedding. You're not the first prize, you're just effing trashy." I was so shocked in the moment I just stared at her. She practically screamed at me to leave, and she was drawing attention, so I grabbed my husband, said goodbye to Dan, and left. Dan reached out after and told me he was upset I left his wedding so soon. Lauren's mom has texted me saying I ruined the wedding for her daughter and that I'm stupid for wearing a gold dress. She's saying it's as bad as wearing white. I was genuinely not aware this was a thing. I want to reach out to Dan to explain, but I don't know if I'm in the wrong here. I don't even think my dress is gold colored. Update 1. Wow, guys, I genuinely didn't know what to expect posting to strangers on this, but I am so thankful to my husband for suggesting this. I needed a non-biased view on this wearing gold to a wedding issue, and now it's clear that that was never the issue. Many of you asked if the dress I wore stood out, and honestly, I know I'm biased saying this, but I genuinely don't think so. Another girl was wearing the exact same dress but in dark red, which we had a laugh about. Slip dresses are a pretty common wedding guest dress where I am, and it was the type of dress that was recommended by the bride. I think many of you were right in saying that it was never about the dress, but how I looked wearing it. It turns out Dan found out pretty quickly what actually happened and called me last night. Apparently, Lauren's mom had told him I was really drunk and told Lauren her dress wasn't it, so I was requested to leave. Dan had his suspicions that it was BS, but it wasn't until his mom called him that confirmed it. It turns out she was nearby when Lauren pulled me aside and, ironically, was actually wearing a yellow gold dress. She tore him a new one about letting Lauren treat me like that. Dan didn't have a solution when he called. I could tell he was emotionally exhausted and pretty defeated. He said he wished I had taken it out on the open bar rather than leaving, but he understood why I left. He thanked me for taking the high road and said that it hasn't gone unnoticed. He apologized for what happened, saying this is an ongoing fight between him and Lauren. For all of those who said Lauren just hates me, it turns out it's 100% true. Apparently, she has been trying to convince Dan to cut me off because that's what a good husband does. He said he thought she had gotten over it now that they were married. I told him that he needs to focus on his happiness, and that I will always be here to support him and that I will take a step back if that's what he needs. They were supposed to leave for their honeymoon yesterday, but when Dan called, they were still at home, so who knows. I've blocked Lauren and her mom and forwarded the messages to Dan as recommended. Thanks again everyone for your comments and judgment. Update 2. So, it's been a couple of months and a bit has happened. The situation seemed to resonate with quite a few people, so I thought I would provide a final update. Thank you to everyone who has messaged, it did help me feel a little less crazy during this time. So, Lauren ended up finding the post on TikTok and was understandably pissed. She called me from Dan's phone and started screaming at me, saying I had ruined her wedding and that I knew what I was doing wearing a dress like that to the wedding. After the initial shock of expecting Dan and getting Lauren screaming, I yelled, "What kind of dress? The same cut that Amy wore? Jesus, I just can't win with you. Dress nicely, and I'm out to get you. Dress casually, and I'm not putting in any effort. I've tried so hard with you, but I'm done." Then I hung up. I messaged Dan, saying, "I clearly can't be in your life with everything the way it is right now. Good luck, and I'll always be a call away," before blocking the number, which broke my heart. That was 3 months ago, and I didn't hear anything except from Dan's mother, who said Lauren wouldn't stop complaining about me, and life continued. In this time, I also discovered I am pregnant. My husband and I made a post a couple of weeks ago announcing this, which made its way to Dan, and he turned up at my front door a few days after. We talked over many drinks on his end and mocktails on mine. He told me that he always thought it was the right thing to do to listen to your partner's boundaries and insecurities, and that Lauren has a lot of body image issues which resulted in her being suspicious of other women. So he thought the right thing was to support her, but he got lost in setting his own boundaries when it came to how she controlled his interactions with his friends. He said the whole situation forced him to think about her boundaries and her own personal standards and saw that they consistently contradicted each other. Like, she believes, rightly so, that women are allowed to wear whatever they feel comfortable in, but she would complain that I was unreasonable for wearing bikinis to family beach days because it was inappropriate. Dan also realized she was trying to cut out his sister and literally every woman in his life, including his boss, insisting he get another job. By the time he had heard about my pregnancy, he told me he didn't want to be an absent friend through this, and had a serious conversation with Lauren. I won't go into details, but the result was that they are currently separated and both in therapy. Dan asked Lauren to move out, and she is currently staying with her mom, who is apparently convinced I am the devil. While I am sad for Dan's relationship having to end like this, I am happy to see that he is starting to learn what a healthy relationship is and that he will be able to be my friend through my pregnancy. My husband is excited to have his gaming buddy back. I reached out to Lauren with Dan's permission, letting her know I am here to talk in a therapy session if she felt like it would help, but I haven't received a response yet. Maybe that's for the best. I can't help but feel bad on some days because I know that a lot of this is born from insecurity. But I am trying to focus on the positives that both of them are in therapy and will hopefully move on to bigger and better things. I'm sorry if this update is a bit scattered as well. Pregnancy brain has been hitting me hard. This update has been read and approved by Dan.